Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Swamp247 Recruiting Podcast, Episode 3. I'm Tyler Harden. Today I'm joined by Class of 2027 four-star wide receiver Jaden Upshaw. He's out of Lee County High School in Leesburg, Georgia. Jaden, how are we?
I'm doing good.
Good deal. Good deal, man. So, man, it's been a little over a month since you visited Florida for the USF game. Just how have you been these days? Lee County's doing well, your high school team holding their own. Just how have you been these days, man?
I've been doing good, just trying to get better day and day.
Yeah. How's the season been going for you guys so far? I know 5-2 record, pretty solid there, but just how has it been going overall for you?
It's been going pretty good. Quarterback played in a couple games because he been injured, so we had our running back going. The quarterback, he can throw the ball pretty good. I've been putting up some good numbers for like the past 4 games. So yeah.
Yeah. So if you have it off the top of your head, what have your numbers been looking like so far this season?
Probably like past 4 games, I'd have had over 100 yards, a touchdown every game. Last game, probably had like 146 yards, 3 touchdowns, and like 5 catches.
I'll do it. That'll do it. That's one good game, right? It's one good night for sure.
Yes,
And
sir.
man, obviously, like I said, it's been a little over a month since you've been to Florida, right? So just where have you been since then, for visits and what schools have you been checking out along with Florida?
Yeah, I done been to Miami, Florida State, Texas A&M, and Georgia. Yeah, Georgia.
You were at Texas A&M for the Florida game,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Yeah. How was that experience?
It definitely was good being down there. That's my first time down there in Texas in College Station, but it was definitely nice.
And, although that wasn't the outcome, Florida had wanted, right? Not the ideal, situation there. Just, I know you were probably, evaluating more Texas A&M, obviously being on a visit with them, but just what did you see from Florida? If you had any takeaways on that end?
Definitely how they, playing freshmen. They got Dallas Wilson and Vernell Brown. Just seeing their big impact in the game as freshmen. So that's probably the biggest takeaway.
Yeah. And, with the freshman receivers, like you said, they've been kind of holding it down for the receiver room as a whole and really the offense as a whole for Florida
Yes,
so
sir.
far, right? Just how does it feel for you seeing like true freshmen like that making an impact on the offense at Florida?
It's definitely, an eye opener, to see that they're willing to play freshmen. So yeah.
Yeah. And, Dallas specifically, right? He's, 2 games in to his college career and he's already lighting it up, right? People really see kind of the long term impact he can have at Florida. Just what are your thoughts on him, as a receiver and just as a player?
Dallas, yeah, he's definitely a dog. I've been watching him since high school, a couple of his states. He's definitely that guy, but of course, injuries had cut him short a couple of games, but I feel like he going to finish out the season strong.
Yeah. So did you expect this out of him, at the college level? Maybe, not this quick, you could say, but did you kind of expect like, all right, Dallas is going to be a dude at the next level?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Spring game, matter of fact, when they play, I heard a couple buzz about him having like 10 catches, probably for like 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I just knew. And then coming down there and watching him in spring practice, so I just knew, like, yeah, he's probably going to be that guy.
For sure, man, for sure. And let's backtrack a little bit, back to your visit for the USF game. Obviously that was kind of like, the beginning of everything that's transpired this season at Florida, I guess you could say. Everything kind of started off of that game. Just, before we kind of get into this to the specifics, just how was your visit? How was your experience down in the swamp?
It's definitely nice. Last time I came down there, it was for a night game. I don't think nothing beat the night game, but being down there it was definitely nice.
Yeah, and obviously Florida was kind of hit with something unexpected, right?
Yeah.
Losing to USF, that's not something Florida's pretty much used to, right? Just what was your reaction as a recruit? Kind of outside of you being recruited by Florida in general, just kind of seeing an upset like that. Just what was kind of your reaction?
It was definitely like a surprise. I thought and it was a good game. USF definitely held their own, but it was just surprising.
Yeah, and I know you've taken a handful of visits, since then, but do you remember like what your takeaways were from that visit? Just kind of the the good things you saw, despite the outcome of the game.
Probably towards the end they started moving the ball a little bit more than it was in the first half, but that's really about it.
Yeah, you saw the potential motion that the offense had, right? They just didn't really show it enough to come out with the win, right? And so
Yeah.
just, you know, what was the difference really from when you saw them for the USF game? And like I said, I know more of the focus was on Texas A&M when you were down there to watch them against Florida. Just what was the difference you saw with, the USF game and then the Texas A&M game with Florida?
They definitely started the game early. I want to say they scored first drive. They had a good long drive down the field. I was kind of surprised, and then they came back and scored again. I was like, okay, then they picked up some momentum. So yeah,
Yeah, so you've seen the improvement that, the offense has had from, game two to right now. So, no, that's
yes,
good,
sir.
man. That's good. And I know you're close with Coach David Decker, wide receivers quality control coach. Just how has it been with Coach Deck lately? How have those conversations been?
It's been pretty good. We talk here and there. Really just been how I've been. What's going on. Ask me about the games and stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah, and I know, during the season it might not be like as consistent, right? I know at one point, what was it, like every other day you guys were
yeah,
talking, on a pretty regular basis. Is it still kind of that way or has it scaled back, like I said, just because of the
yeah.
season?
Probably a little back because of the season. They have a lot going on.
Yeah. Are you talking with Coach Gonzalez, Billy Gonzalez at all, or is it really just Coach Deck
Yeah,
right now?
I talk to both of them. Here and there.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about Billy G, man. Just how's everything with him and getting to know him, over time.
He's definitely a cool guy. You feel me? I've been down there and talked to him in person. He's a real good coach. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So, man, between your conversations with the staff, you've been on campus multiple times now. Has Florida found a way to really stand out to you in any way, or is it kind of still, building compared to some other schools?
Um, Florida's definitely they're a standout school, but I mean it's still building compared to some other schools. So yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. And I know, you threw out some visits that you've been on already, Miami, Florida State, Texas A&M, just, what were kind of the takeaways from some of those visits that you've taken to some other schools?
Really it was just probably I have to say consistency. The consistency there. Cause
Yeah.
Florida been up and down during the season, and the schools I went to, they've been good all out. So yeah, just staying consistent. Cause they had a big game against Texas, the upset win. Then going out to Texas A&M, I just feel like they just got to be more consistent.
Yeah, and you bring up, the Texas game, right, with Florida. I know you, of course, weren't there. You might have seen some highlights, whatever, whatnot. Did
Yes,
you
sir.
have any takeaways from how Florida played there, or was it kind of just like, oh, good game. We'll see how they kind of respond, ride out that momentum.
Definitely, it was I saw some highlights. I was like, yeah, they jumped out early for what I heard on them. Dallas wasn't making plays like usual. So yeah, it was definitely like okay. So I see they trying to build some momentum back up.
Yeah, for sure. And from the visits you've taken so far, this fall, is there one that you could say really kind of like, was put in its own category or stuck out most to you type of thing, or is that kind of yet to come for you?
Yeah, probably Texas A&M and
Yeah. Yeah, I know Miami and Texas A&M, they're kind of like the two schools to beat right now for you, right? A little bit.
yes, sir.
Yeah, for sure. Talk about Miami a little bit, man. Just, what's kind of, brought them up to, that kind of that top conversation for you.
After being down there, but uh, it was definitely nice from the atmosphere, from talking to coaches down there because they've been contacting me before I even got down there, and they still do to this day. Just talking to Coach Beard, him showing me stuff that they do and how it could translate to my game and just crafting my game up to be a better player for when I do get to college. Because of course I'm going against the best of the best. So yeah.
Yeah, and how about Texas A&M? I know you touched on it a little bit, but just how was that experience? Just being in Kyle Field, being in that atmosphere.
Uh, Probably one of the best visits I've ever been to. Talking to Coach Wiggins, soon as like touchdown on campus, I felt the love from the coaches, the whole staff, and my family. Talking to Coach Wiggins, he's probably the only receiver coach still active that has a Heisman winner. You know, all the receivers he done produced at Alabama. So him just going to Texas A&M and doing the same you see with the two receivers he have over there. So it was definitely great.
Yeah, like you just said, man, the resume with Coach Holman Wiggins kind of, speaks for itself to a degree, right? With all the, Alabama receivers he's developed. When it comes to just, evaluating coaching staffs, evaluating schools in general and your recruitment, just how much of a, factor does the coaching staff really play in your process as things stand kind of right now?
It definitely plays a huge part in my decision because I need a coach that that experience, making players good, putting players in the NFL that's produced, for long terms. You could be in the NFL and only produce like a year, and so yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's no secret to you that there's been, kind of some buzz about, potential coaching change at Florida. Obviously they've been struggling on the field, kind of like we said. Does that, bring up any concerns on your part about that, or is it kind of something that, you acknowledge, but not really thinking much about that?
Um, really, nah, I ain't really too much thought about it for real yet.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. And away from recruitment, man, obviously you're, in the middle of your junior season, right? That's kind of, you know, I would say that's probably the priority right now, just doing what you can to end up with a ring in the end, right? Just, I know you touched on it, but just, how has this season really treated you, as a player, away from how, the wins and the losses, just how has this season been for you as, individually?
I'd probably say this probably been one of the most like productive. I wouldn't say productive season, but I'm stepping into more of a. I feel like I got more stuff to step into. Like last year I caught a lot of passes for a lot of yards, but this year I haven't caught as many passes as I did. But I feel as if like me catching the ball, getting yards at the catch, making moves, which is building up my yards at the catch. So yeah, I feel like I'm just doing better as a player this year.
There's more specific things that like you're implementing into your like game by game type of
Yeah.
performances. It's not just like, catching touchdowns, right? It's, those yak yards and everything, right? So no, that's cool, man. That's cool. And, just looking ahead to, the rest of the regular season, the deep playoff run, I'm sure you're, hoping and kind of expecting, right? Just what are you looking forward to most about what's ahead?
To really just trying to get to the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, man. Just playing it. So yeah, just trying to get a ring.
Yeah. And I know that's kind of, you know, like that's the standard at Lee County, right? Of course, a powerhouse program down there in South Georgia. Just being a part of that program, how does it feel knowing that that is the standard and, that is kind of what's preached to you guys year in, year out? Like, hey, if we don't make it to the dome and, end up with a ring in the end, kind of like a letdown, right? Just, how does that feel from your part that that's kind of what you're a part of?
I just feel like the standard is set high, so we got everybody's accountable. So everybody held to a high standard because go to Lee County High School. So I just feel like it's good. It prepares you for when you go to college and you got to be to a higher standard. So yeah.
Yeah, and man, on our recruitment side as well, of course, you're going to be going week by week with your own games, but you're going to be continuing to take some visits. What's ahead for you on that front? Just taking more visits. Where are you headed? In the coming months.
Uh, I'll be at Syracuse this weekend. I'll be at Alabama, South Carolina, probably USC, and Michigan, and I want to say that's about it. And
Yeah, going to be
Tennessee.
getting those. Okay, yeah, going to be getting those frequent flyer miles in. Sounds like right.
Yeah.
Getting a West Coast trip in. Going up north this weekend, so that'll be fun, man. Getting to see some cool places along the way, right? So, man, so that'll do it here at the Swamp 24/7 Recruiting Podcast. 2027 4-star wide receiver Jaden Upshaw here. I'm Tyler Harden. Thanks for joining us for episode 3 of the Swamp 24/7 Recruiting Podcast.